of NLM's online playgrounds, K-12 science and health education resources. My name is Debbie Montenegro, and I'm the Consumer Health Coordinator at the National Network of Libraries of Medicine South Central Region. Thank you for joining us. I just hope by the end of this session that you will leave here ready to further explore and utilize a variety of the online science and health resources that have been developed by the National Library of Medicine. All of NLM's resources are freely available for the public to use. Today's session is a 1-hour version of the course, and we have a lot of resources to get through, so hold on to your seats as I zoom you through these group of resources. We do have links to the slides that Sarah has put in the chat box, and don't worry about having to write down links or URLs. Those are all in the handout. This session is eligible for Consumer Health Information Specialization credits, otherwise known as CHIS. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box, and I will address them as we go or at the end of the session as time allows us. So our objectives today are to identify at least 6 K-12 resources from the National Library of Medicine, and we're going to cover a lot more of that today, but at least 6 to be able to identify, and locate lesson plans to supplement current curriculum and youth programming. We can also find resources for the K-12 population that can be used for either homework help, research projects, or health science programming. So those are our objectives for today. So I would just like to introduce who we are for those who may not be familiar with us already. The National Institutes of Health is the nation's medical research agency. It is comprised of 27 institutes and centers. One of those institutions is the National Library of Medicine. It's also known as NLM. The NLM is the world's largest biomedical library. It maintains and makes available a vast print collection and produces electronic information resources on a wide range of topics. These are searched billions of times each year by millions of people around the globe. It also supports and conducts research, development, and training in biomedical informatics and health information technology. The NLM also produces and makes freely available a variety of K-12 resources for educators that we will highlight today. In addition, the National Library of Medicine coordinates the National Network of Libraries of Medicine. We sometimes refer to ourselves as the NNLM, and we promote and provide access to health information in communities across the United States. And this is carried out through a nationwide network of 8 regional medical libraries and 5 regional offices, as you can see on our chart. And here's a map to show our different regions. And of course, our mission is to advance the progress of medicine and improve the public health by providing health information to health professionals and also to the public. And you can see all of our designated regions. NNLM has been serving the biomedical information needs of the nation for over 40 years. And we are supported via these regional offices that are the boots on the ground sites for the National Library of Medicine. And I would just encourage you all to contact your regional office and see what resources and services are available to you as educators or librarians. Membership is free, and regional offices provide trainings both in person and online, and a variety of other services that are useful. And I'm coming to you now from the South Central region, and our 5 states network, or our network includes Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, New Mexico, and Arkansas. So you can see us in red there at the bottom. So that was just a quick overview of who we are. But back to our subject matter. Why are we here today? For teachers, we are here to find resources for lesson planning and programming. Students, we're here for homework and research project help. And librarians, you're here for resources to share. And teachers and librarians have a wonderful position where they can empower students by giving them access to critical information, critical and credible information, and by giving them the tools to seek out knowledge on their own. And librarians can also empower teachers as their peers by training the trainer. And you can also partner in programs with teachers or be a support for them through finding lesson plan resources and other resources that might be available to educators to help them with creating their plans. All right, so here are just some of the topics that we'll be covering today. NLM includes games and health information tutorials, science project ideas, suggested reading lists. Some even have Spanish language resources and more. So we'll cover some that have to do with biology, health science careers, environmental health science, forensics, general health, and genetics. And again, all of these are at a consumer health or K-12 level. So first off, we're going to start off with just general health. And our first resource is Medline Plus. Medline Plus is the National Library of Medicine's consumer health information resource. This is where you can take your students to locate reliable health and wellness resources. Medline Plus includes over 1,000 health topics, information on drugs and supplements, videos and tools, health videos and news, and much more. Medline Plus uses a responsive web design to provide a consistent user experience from a desktop, tablet, or phone. And all users, regardless of how they access Medline Plus, should find the same trusted health information. And responsive pages basically just means that they automatically change their layout to fit your screen. Medline Plus is updated daily and adheres to strict quality guidelines. Medline Plus is available in both English and Spanish. You can see up there in the top right corner where it says Español. There's also a page with links to Health Reach, which has health information in multiple languages for those who may have students from diverse language backgrounds. So if you actually go to the home page and scroll to the bottom, you'll see a link to Health Reach in other languages. And so here you can see that there's whatever is in the news, and then some of the other on the left-hand side we'll talk about in a second. All right, so health topics. Health topics is one of the main tabs in Medline Plus, and within the health topics section of Medline Plus, you're given an overview of the wide range of topics that exist within Medline Plus. There are 5 main sections: body locations and systems, disorders and conditions, and you can see the other 3 there on the screen. These can help you determine what health topic pages might be relevant for your curriculum or for your student body. For example, a high school first semester biology class for 9th and 10th graders will usually include study of cell biology, reproduction, genetics, evolution, and also animal classifications or taxonomy. So based on that information, I would probably review the pregnancy and reproductive system, genetics and birth defects, the female-male reproductive system pages, and perhaps even the infection pages to review concepts within cell biology. There are also health topics related to disasters or safety issues if you look on the right-hand column. So there are some interesting topics that have already been selected and made as into topic pages. And just some general topics of interest. There are some sample topics of interest to educators that can be found within Medline Plus. As I mentioned, there are over 1,000 health topics pages, so students can use this resource as a starting point for research on a variety of health and wellness related topics, or for a biology class or a chemistry class. The second section of Medline Plus, which is the drugs, herbs, and supplements page, can find information on is where you can find information on medications and supplements. You can begin discussion with youth about substance use and misuse. And there's actually a spin-off now as well. NIH launched the Herbalist app this summer, which contains information on popular herbs and herbal supplements. And you can find it for free to download in either the Apple or Google Play app stores. And students can use all the apps as well, and they also, this is just a great way to get the latest health news and have students look up subjects in different health topics. So the topics are a good place to start exploring, both either for you or for your students. And one interesting page on Medline Plus is the videos, tools, and games section. This section has more interactive pages and links. If you ever find yourself wanting to create quizzes or questionnaires on various health topics, you can check the health check tool section, which will be useful. There are interactive health games that are good for providing students with an additional fun way to learn about health topics. These can be used during or after, during test breaks, or at the beginning of class when you have those few minutes as kids are starting to come in before the bell rings, or when you need to keep students, otherwise engaged, and just to add some fun gaming to your existing curricula. An example of a quiz is one called Test Your Knowledge from the National Institute of Drug Abuse, which has several quizzes to test students' knowledge on drugs and how they affect the brain and body. For those who teach sexual health and reproduction, you can find the Stay Teen Games website from the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy. And there are a variety of other quizzes on different, very specific health topics like those. NLM also has a new NLM Update podcast. It's a weekly audio update that highlights consumer health news and accompanying information from Medline Plus. So you can see that as the third tab down on the right-hand side. That's something that's new and different from last year. And just an example of one of the games that is supported by these different resources is Lungtropolis. Lungtropolis is where kids with asthma learn to play, and it's from American Lung Association. It's suited for children ages 5 to 10. Kids get to become an asthma control agent and fight the mucus mob. This interactive website was designed for children with asthma between the ages of 5 to 10, as I said, and it's fun, interactive, and educational, and it was made possible from a grant from the National Institutes of Health Small Business Innovation Research Program. And although the link is not on the Medline Plus Games page anymore, the link is on the handout sheet for this session, so you can still see that there. And even though it was designed for children who have asthma, it's still a great learning tool for those without the condition to just learn about respiratory issues. There's also health information tutorials available on Medline Plus. These are additional materials in the video and tools section, and I would just encourage you to explore some of the ones. There's understanding medical words, evaluating internet health information, the To Your Health NLM update series, and these are just great discussion starters even, and they span a variety of health-related topics. The Understanding Medical Words tutorial game breaks down medical words into their Latin derivatives to make them easier to understand. It is very student-friendly, and it can be used for students who are in clinical track programs like HOSA. And this tutorial was actually used at the beginning of a higher education course I took, and it was to help students familiarize themselves with the Latin derivatives of medical terms before we went on to more difficult items. And so the first three here are on Medline Plus, and then the fourth has actually been moved to a separate page now on SCR, which is also linked to on your handout page. And that one is about finding and using health statistics. And lastly, on Medline Plus, there's also dedicated pages for different demographics. They have 2 topics pages, one dedicated to health issues for teens and another for children, because they do really have different issues they are dealing with health-wise. And the links to the teen and children's pages are also in the handout. And teens are just undergoing many developmental changes, and it's just an overall time of lots of change, and some are gaining independence and are beginning to make decisions on their own. So this page has links to topics that would be relevant for teenagers to access. The children's health page is really more for the parents about health for their kids, and as little ones may not be able to read at this level, and generally parents are the ones making the decisions about children's health. So that's how those two are kind of split out. And there's other pages as well, but I just wanted to specify these since we're talking about K through 12. There's also Medline Plus magazine. There's an online version and also a print version, and you can subscribe to the print magazine and others and order individuals or in bulk. An English version is published quarterly, and a separate Spanish version is published once a year. Each issue focuses on a different health topic and has a celebrity discuss a health issue they or a family member has dealt with. And to the right, you can see the latest edition for summer 2018 with American Ninja Warrior host and comedian Matt Eisman. And he is standing up to arthritis, and we're like jumping up against arthritis. Also on the left, we have Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory. He hosted a 3-part series on the Discovery Channel called First in Human, which is about the NIH Clinical Center. And the NIH Clinical Center is also known as the House of Hope, which is why you see the House of Hope there at the bottom of that one in the middle to the left. Below on the left, we also have Nick Jonas talking about type 1 diabetes and how he's tackling that. And also on the left, we have Michael Phelps on the end talking about how he has dealt with or is dealing with depression. So there's just, it keeps going back into the different issues with different celebrities and different health issues that they have faced. So that's just a fun other resource that Medline Plus has available. But moving on to another resource from the NLM, we have PubMed. PubMed is a free resource that is developed and maintained by the National Center for Biotechnology. And it provides free access to the NLM database called Medline, which contains index citations and abstract articles covering many different topics. Some of those topics can include nursing, dental topics, veterinary topics, healthcare, life sciences, behavioral sciences, or chemical sciences, some even with bioengineering. So you can see there's a lot of those STEM field subjects that can be searched through here. You can introduce this to your high school students, particularly ones that are taking advanced placement or IB courses. Also, this could be instrumental for students who are already in higher education once they're doing research for science classes that they may be taking. PubMed can be used to locate research information about a disease or condition. It can also teach students how to begin to conduct health research. It includes tutorials and access to full-text articles via PubMed Central, which I'll talk about in a minute. And when I did this presentation last year, the number of citations was 26 million. Now it's up to 28 million citations. PubMed is large animal. However, there are tutorials available. And you can see there on the left, there's a green arrow pointing towards links with PubMed tutorials. So PubMed tutorials, the page has been revamped, and all of the different resources are now nicely listed in the page. It contains quick tours, previously recorded webcasts and classes, along with handouts. And taking these tutorials can be beneficial for your students so they can learn how to use PubMed, but you can also take these yourself to learn more about it if you would like. And again, it would be very helpful to introduce this resource to juniors or seniors in a health school, health or science class, or to prepare those who are pursuing health science in college and those in higher education as well. So there are a couple of classes now too called, there's PubMed Essentials, PubMed Labs, and Making PubMed Work for You as well, just to give you some basic tools on how to utilize PubMed. PubMed is a very, very helpful resource, but it also has a lot of information. So again, as librarians, the tutorials help us to learn how to be able to use this resource to help narrow down what we're looking for. And also just helpful resources like handouts and short, quick tour videos. And back to PubMed Central, which I mentioned before. PubMed Central is the digital archive of biomedical and life sciences journal literature. So it is the digital counterpart to the NLM's extensive print journal collection. And participation by publishers and PMC is voluntary, although participating journals must meet certain scientific and technical standards. So PMC itself is not a publisher. And while access to the material at PMC is free, use of the material is still subject to the copyright of the respective authors or publishers. So you can see the PMC copyright notice for more information. But a great thing about PubMed Central is that it is possible to find full text of articles at no cost. So this is where you can have students look for articles related to science or health topics. You could even locate a few research articles on a topic of your choice and then have an example for them to practice searching in PubMed, or you can learn to dissect the different parts of a published research article so that students can learn how to read scientific publications for themselves and understand what they mean. I think this is something that's becoming more important now as we have so much information out online in different studies, and journalists are publishing about these different studies and may not necessarily have understood the outcome. It's just a way to prepare students to be able to read these for themselves. Another stat from last year, while we went from 26 to 28 million citations, last year there were 4 million articles archived in PubMed Central, and now there are up to 5 million articles archived. So this is happening in real time. There are constantly articles and citations being added to PubMed Central. An extra thing to note is that a separate site called PubMed Health, if any of you are familiar with it, is being discontinued, but this will not negatively affect PubMed itself. Changing subject matters a bit, we have two different websites that have to do with AIDS information, and the reason we cover this is that several states and the District of Columbia require students to receive instruction about HIV and AIDS. So AIDS Info is a service of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and it offers access to the latest federally approved HIV/AIDS medical practice guidelines, treatment and prevention, clinical trials, and other research information for healthcare providers, researchers, and also people affected by HIV or AIDS and the general public. The educational materials include fact sheets, a medical dictionary of HIV-related terms, images of HIV-related topics using infographics and web pages highlighting the National HIV Awareness Days as well. And the infographics on AIDS Info makes HIV-related concepts hopefully easier to understand is the idea. And related to AIDS Info is also AIDS Source on the next page. AIDS Source offers access to a comprehensive collection of HIV/AIDS-related resources reviewed and selected by expert information specialists and librarians. And the AIDS Source was developed by the National Library of Medicine to ensure that those seeking information about HIV or AIDS have a source of quality reviewed current content. So again, speaking to that, having verified peer-reviewed content. In 2005, it was linked to ACE Info to make access easier for users of both of the sites. And as you can see there's a screenshot of the home page. The site is set up so you can select your audience type, and it will guide you to the resources best fitting for the audience type. So you can select that you are a student or an educator, part of the general public. If you're a health professional or researcher, there's also information available in multiple languages. So depending on what you select, it'll take you to that. So that can be helpful as well. There's also DailyMed. DailyMed is one of the drug information resources from the National Library of Medicine. This can be helpful for students who have prescribed medications. DailyMed is the official provider of FDA label information, and the FDA is the Food and Drug Administration. This website provides a standard, comprehensive, up-to-date lookup and download resource of medication content and labeling found in medication package inserts. And it contains federally approved prescription drug labels submitted by manufacturers, and includes descriptions, usage, warnings, and patient counseling information. The website contains 104,000 drug listings as submitted to the FDA, although with the caveat that it is not a complete listing of labels for approved prescription drugs. So I believe it is something that is building over time. Pillbox is interesting. So it can help you identify prescription pills. Sometimes you may have random pills that show up in a school, and this could be a useful resource for the school nurse or teachers or the administration to be able to identify mystery prescription drugs. Pillbox Advanced Search app has been retired. According to the homepage, a new Pillbox website is in development that has the same features as the Advanced Search and runs on phones, tablets, and desktop browsers. So again, this one, although I don't have a screenshot of it, the website itself shows actual images of prescription drugs, and it helps, through a search, help you identify one that you have if it's in the database. So it's a pretty cool resource to have. So why is this important? Students and patrons who are teenagers are undergoing lots of changes, and they are having to undergo new decision-making processes. Peer pressure, bullying, the opioid epidemic, social media use, there's just a lot that they're having to deal with these days. And as librarians or educators, of which I have been both, I think it's an important tool, and it requires effort to have a set of resources established to send their way, and as one step in the process of just helping them through this thing that is school and life as a teenager in general. Also, these resources covered today are vetted by professionals, and NLM has these resources available for free. So again, just another useful resource for students. They don't have to pay for these resources. And when I was a teacher, I wish I had known about these resources. I would have, passed these on to my students. And of course, in doing all this, we are promoting health literacy, which is also a mission of our organization. So moving on to careers, we'll talk about in the next section some resources to find different careers in the health sciences. So first off is Changing the Face of Medicine, Celebrating America's Women Physicians in one of the NLM's exhibitions. I'll talk about the NLM exhibition pages a little bit later. And this one focuses on looking at how women physicians and their contributions, and their overall contributions to science. It has content about how physicians help quality of life, and students can use a guide that's provided to search medical careers on this website. In case they're interested in pursuing a career in medicine. There's also classroom lesson plans available for educators, as well as suggested reading lists. So this is a very interesting page, and with a very specific type of content. There's also HAZMAP. For students interested in STEM careers, HAZMAP focuses on health and safety and also information on adverse effects and exposure to chemicals or biological agents in the workplace. And you can talk to your students about career goals and how science is involved in different careers that you wouldn't necessarily think science is involved in. And you can search jobs by type or by category. And you can talk about different hazardous jobs or symptoms from exposure based on careers. You can have students create a list of their top 5 career choices and have them search HAZMAP to find if there's been any exposure. If you're teaching environmental science, chemistry, or biology, you could also do the reverse and have students search by hazardous agent and find information on those chemicals. And sometimes it's surprising to find out what agents are at different workplaces. I like to use the example for cosmetologists or hairdressers who dye your hair differently. You know, they're working with chemicals. Random reference, in the movie Legally Blonde, Elle Woods famously wins her case because she knows that if you wash your hair after a perm, you risk deactivating the ammonium thioglycolate. So sometimes science is involved in different careers you wouldn't think science is necessarily involved in. Any questions so far? I know I've had to kind of push through a lot of these different resources. I'm trying to get through as many as possible. But if you have any questions, just remember that you can place them in the chat box and I'll address them as we go, or I can address them at the end of our session. Another resource is the online exhibition Physician's Assistant, Collaboration in Care. Physician assistant is a growing field. This resource focuses specifically on this profession and how it developed to meet social needs. It includes stories from different PAs around the world. And PA, of course, is an acronym for physician assistant. There's also information on the different practices that they may work in. It also includes a lesson plan for grades 6 through 8 and another lesson plan for grades 9 through 12. And both focus on health education about PAs and what it is that they do. And the high school version has students do the research and look at employment outlook and certification requirements, so a little bit of a more serious research for them. So again, there's a lot of times there are students who don't necessarily know what options there are as far as careers in their future. I know I was one of them, and you tend to know the more popular ones like doctor, lawyer, nurse, but there's several other careers out there that are available, and sometimes it's just helpful to know what those are so that students can prepare for them beforehand, and that way they can start working towards those goals. And then Medline Plus, back to Medline Plus, they have a health occupations page, and it's an excellent place to have students begin to explore their health careers. It includes information on a variety of health occupations, traditional and non-traditional. It has many links to the Bureau of Labor Statistics for information on what a profession does, their work environment, how to become a particular health professional, the median annual wage, just the general information you would want to find out about a career that you might be interested in. You'll also find information on types of healthcare providers from within the medical encyclopedia, and any latest news covering things such as nursing, the gender pay gap, and health statistics. And you will find links to several resources. Many of them will lead to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. But again, this page was created in order to curate and group together those health occupations specifically. All right, so for the next section, we'll be covering environmental health and chemistry. I taught both environmental science and chemistry at the senior high school level, so these resources are incredibly helpful for those subject matters. And this is just a quick bird's eye view of some of the content and different resources available. We'll briefly cover some of these choice ones, and as you can tell, a lot of them are toxicology related, so very heavy on the environmental health. And don't worry about writing these down again, just you can refer to your handout for any of the URL links. First off, I'll begin with Toxmistry. Toxmistry is a resource aimed at elementary school children ages 7 through 10. Toxmistry is an engaging resource to use with younger children to teach them about the environmental hazards that may exist at home. So they're guided by Toxie the cat, so a nice familiar cartoon character, and Toxie walks children through items that they would encounter on a daily basis at home and teaches students or children how to recognize different chemicals and how to avoid them. And so you can see there that they have the different rooms of the house, and Toxie just kind of takes them through in the flash version of the website. And here you can see an example of an exercise. And the teacher resources page provides lesson plans on introducing those students who are ages 7 to 10 to potential environmental hazards in their day-to-day environment. There's also a follow-up lesson plan, which is a paper-based activity using Toxie to have students play detectives and attempt to catch that hazard. They follow clues provided and investigate chemicals that are discussed within their online resource. And there's also a third lesson plan that teaches students what acids and bases are. There's also a parent resource where you can print and send home information about what the students learned in class. So again, as a teacher, that's helpful to have that extra resource for parents. It might also be interesting to partner with a Spanish language teacher on this resource, as the lesson plans are also available in Spanish. So one thing about teaching that I've noticed lately is there is a push for interdisciplinary interaction and partnerships between teachers of different subject matters. So that's also just an interesting idea or concept to do an interdisciplinary partnership there. Then there's Environmental Health Student Portal. This one is for middle school students. And although it clearly states that it's for middle school students, educators have shared that 5th graders and some 4th graders are able to use this resource. And this resource is about environmental health topics such as air pollution, chemicals, climate change, and water pollution. These topics are often introduced in the younger grades, and this resource allows educators to use the site just to supplement their existing materials and to further explore the connection between human activities and the environment and how these activities affect our health. So the text varies from easy to read to advanced reading levels, which makes this a really versatile tool for use within the classroom for those with different proficiency reading levels, or sorry, those with different reading levels. The portal takes advantage of several different mediums. The site links to articles and games, activities, and videos. And users can also explore science, technology, engineering, and math careers, STEM careers, and view current event press releases from Medline Plus on environmental health-related topics. And so again, if any of you are not familiar with the term STEM, again, it stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. That's what a lot of these resources are catering to since we're in the health information realm. And it's also sometimes referred to as STEAM, STEM, or STREAM. The A is for art and the R is for reading, so there may be variations there. And then Talkstown. Talkstown was revamped about 2 weeks ago, and it looks very different. It is designed still to give you consumer-level health information for the general public and on everyday locations and situations where you might be exposed to toxic chemicals, and also on how to reduce risk. Some of the added features of the new site include improved readability, organization of the content into sources of exposure and chemicals and contaminants, the reduce your risk information with practical steps to avoid and address exposure, and a community action tools page with tools for community engagement and resources for finding local data. So some other new page topics also include non-technical descriptions of chemicals and contaminants, and also the diseases and conditions tab, which explores possible associations between environmental contaminants and select diseases and conditions. There's also the key concepts and glossary tab, which has terms related to environmental health and toxicology. There's also the Tools for Teacher tab, and you can see it's circled there. The page provides further resources that you can use in your class to stimulate learning about environmental health issues. You can also find information on careers in environmental health, chemicals, and toxicology. So Talkstown is a companion to the extensive information in the ToxNet collection of databases that are typically used by toxicologists and health professionals. So this is like the consumer health version of those resources. But speaking of ToxNet, ToxNet is essentially a collection of databases, and there's a guide is essentially the homepage to choosing a database on the main page of ToxNet, and it can help you to choose one of the several databases that are listed. Some examples of the databases contained within ToxNet would be the Hazardous Substances Data Bank, ToxLine, which has 4 million references to literature on toxicology effects of drugs and chemicals, DART, which is Development and Reproductive Toxicology Database, ToxMap, which I'll talk about in a little bit, also TRI, the Toxics Release Inventory. So you can see there's a trend here of a lot of different resources for toxicology. There's also the Household Products Database, which is a database that has listed different household products that you would commonly run into every day, and it has the potential effects of those chemicals listed. So the Household Product Database is one that would be relevant to the K through 12 crowd. And the reason why I bring up ToxNet is that there is one of the databases that would be useful for specifically senior high school, which is ChemID+. And you can use it to locate information on 400,000 chemicals, including synonyms and structures. And so again, if you have students who are taking chemistry, this would be incredibly helpful. There's ChemID+ Lite, and then there's also Advanced. So I believe I have a screenshot of the Lite version up on the screen right now. And in ChemID+ Lite, you can search by chemical name or by registry number. And in the advanced version, you can research by name, molecular formula, molecular structure, or physical and toxicological properties. So ChemID plus Lite is designed just for simple searching, and of course the advanced, you have more advanced ways of looking through the database. In addition, the advanced version also lets users draw their own structures and perform chemical similarity and substructure searches. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with chemistry, but to me that's mind-blowing. I was actually a chemistry major, and this type of resource wasn't necessarily available when I was doing my coursework. So this is very, very helpful for any students having to do this. And again, your search results done in either the ChemID Plus Lite or ChemID Plus Advanced will show the name, registry number, molecular formula, classification code, and a lot of other information about those chemicals. So again, very helpful for the students in those science courses. And then I also mentioned ToxMap. There's a new version of ToxMap available as of June of this year. The new version does not require a browser plugin, and it also provides improved usability on mobile devices. The previous versions of ToxMap, including ToxMap Classic and the Flash version, have been retired. So this is just kind of taking its place, and I have a screenshot of the actual map right there. ToxMap is a GIS, which is a Geographic Information System from the National Library of Medicine that uses maps of the United States to help users visually explore environmental health data, primarily from the EPA's Toxic Release Inventory and Superfund programs. ToxMap also features the Canadian NPRI data, U.S. EPA coal plant emissions data, U.S. commercial nuclear power plant data. And ToxMap overlays the U.S. Census demographic data, income figures from the U.S. Department of Commerce, and health data from the National Cancer Institute SCR program. So there's a lot of different resources being pulled into this one. And ToxMap belongs, of course, to the group of ToxMap databases that I was referring to earlier. And lastly, for the environmental section, the National Library of Medicine has a series of games that are available for free. Each of these games are compatible with iOS technology, so iPhones, iPads, iPod Touch. These can be found for free download at the iTunes Store. And these would be great for schools that have an iPad program. There's Base, Chase, and Bore Through, and these were developed in collaboration with a high school teacher and are easily usable within a biology or a chemistry class. The third game, Run for Green, is a fun tool that reinforces concepts relating to environmental conservation, and it can also be used as an engagement extension activity. It's great for students in grades 5 through 8. There's also Tox Invaders, and this supports middle and high school students with science concepts pertaining to chemistry, environmental health. The games help students understand concepts like DNA-based pairing, the Bohr model, environmental conservation, etc. And one has its character running through the game Mario style, so that's a little bit fun. Bore Through is also a useful tool with NLM's ChemID Plus, so some of the games kind of pair with one of the NLM resource pages. So Bore Through would kind of pair with ChemID Plus. Run for Green would pair well with the Environmental Health Student Portal that we'd mentioned. Tox Invaders would work best as a supplement to Tox Town, and also the Environmental Health Student Portal, ToxMap, and ChemID Plus. So they all kind of interlink. I will say Tox Invaders is actually quite difficult. As someone who has taken a lot of science courses, I played that game not too long ago, and the questions were actually pretty difficult. So it was a test in a way. So that's the environmental resources. Next up are the genetics resources. And we will start off with Genetics Home Reference. Genetics Home Reference is also referred to as GHR, and this website is specifically for providing consumer-friendly health information about the effects of genetic variations on human health. Genetics Home Reference is a great supplemental tool to get students started on refreshers to learn about human genetics or inherited disorders. Educators can guide students to locate information by either condition or by gene. They can learn about the different pairs of human chromosomes. They can learn about mitochondrial DNA. And the resource also includes a glossary of medical and genetics definitions, as well as links to other genetic information and organizations so that you can extend the learning of your students. Genetics Home Reference also provides a printable version of the entire handbook. They have this giant handbook. And you can just click PDF and it'll make it a nice printable version. And popular sections of this handbook are, like section 1 is what is DNA, 2 is what is a gene mutation, 4 is how many chromosomes do people have, 5 is what are proteins, what do they do. So those are the types of questions that are addressed in this reference book. And so for those who teach these types of topics, you could take out sections and have students go over them. And so this handbook is kind of like a FAQs of genetics. There's also another NLM genetics resource website called GeneEd. However, it is being retired in March of next year, so I didn't necessarily want to go over that. But if you would like to go to GeneEd and grab any lesson plans you can before it is retired, that could be something that you can also look into. And some of the information from GeneEd will be moved over to Genetics Home Reference, so not all of it will be lost. And lastly for genetics is Harry Potter's World. Oh, are the game apps also available for Android devices? Unfortunately, not so far. I believe the way that they built it is only available on Apple, but that is something that we can pass on as a suggestion as well. Thank you for that question. So for Harry Potter's World, it explores the world of Harry Potter and its roots in Renaissance science, magic, and medicine. It's also a resource that is really focused on genetics. And has a wide range of resources for a student audience. The Harry Potter books, if any of you are aware, turned 20 last year. It was the 20th anniversary of when the books first came out in the UK. This year is the 20th anniversary of when the books came out in the US. So I recently saw the anniversary announcement on a magazine while I was waiting in line at the grocery store. And also, there's a national conference for Harry Potter fans called LeakyCon. And it was actually in Dallas this past weekend. So most of that just to say that Harry Potter is still very popular in YA literature, and so this might be something that you could use to integrate into your library, integrating pop culture into your library or your science class or even your English class. This is one of those resources where you could implement an interdisciplinary partnership with different subject teachers. And so this site specifically explores the world of Harry Potter and its roots in Renaissance science. And although it's a fantasy story, the magic in the Harry Potter books are partially based on Renaissance traditions that played an important role in the development of our Western science and medicine. So this site uses the characters of Harry Potter to teach genetic concepts. And so they have instructional resources for educators in middle and high schools and also in higher education. And it includes instructional guides and materials, and it's technically one of the online exhibitions, and I've mentioned this before. I'll actually talk a little bit more about those later. And so there are English and science lesson plans for middle and high school, so whichever course or subject matter, as an educator or librarian you're working with, it will be helpful for both. And there's also some online activities. One focuses on teaching students the properties of the natural world around them, and the other one helps them to develop their critical thinking skills by looking at different perspectives in regards to inequalities that are forced on many of the creatures within the novel. So this is just a nice very specific resource, but also one that might help grab students' attention since it is something that is still in the popular literature. And so lastly, I wanted to cover some more interdisciplinary and additional resources. I want to touch briefly on the online exhibitions, which I've been mentioning some of already. So the NLM online exhibitions offer opportunities for collaboration between educators. And so you can see here we have, I have a screenshot of the page. It's a little small. Hopefully you can see it there. So the exhibition program has different websites and actual physical traveling exhibitions. And the point of these is to enhance awareness of and appreciation for the collections of the National Library of Medicine. So I actually already covered some of the exhibitions, which would have been Celebrating Women Physicians, the Physician's Assistant page, and the Harry Potter's World page are actually all part of this exhibition program. So these exhibitions and educational resources are meant to engage diverse audiences and explore a variety of different topics in the history of medicine. So that's kind of the relation to the library there, is the history of medicine. So in addition, NLM produces the traveling exhibitions, which are made available free of charge to the public. You just have to sign up for them, and some have longer waits than others. So the Harry Potter one has a longer wait since, it's more popular. The permanent online exhibitions are augmented by different multidisciplinary educational and career resources for educators and students. So I just encourage you to browse the site. There's many exhibitions that are available. There's some that are I don't want to say random, but just very specific, kind of like the Harry Potter one, or there's some different ones. So just for the sake of time, I will just cover one that I thought was interesting. And of course, there's more exhibition pages available. But there's visible proofs. So visible proofs is an exhibition that's focused on the history of forensics. So again, with the history of medicine. Over the centuries, physicians, surgeons, and other professionals have struggled to develop scientific methods that translate views of bodies and body parts into visible proofs, as they call them, that can persuade judges or juries and the public. So this site has 3 online activities and 3 lesson plans that introduce forensic medicine, anthropology, technology, and history. So again, just very specific topics. And as you can see there, there's cases, biographies, artifacts, different media. And it's designed specifically, again, for students and educators. And the lesson plans provide the educators with just those ready-made resources for the classroom and online activities to promote active learning with students. And again, this might be maybe for the high school. As you can see, there's some of the images are, you know, it's forensic, so they'll be a little bit more anatomical. So that was a quick run-through of all of these different resources that are available through the National Library of Medicine. There are many more resources available. If you look through the National Library of Medicine's webpage, the homepage, you can select where you can see a database, and there's almost 300 different resources available. So again, I just touched the tip of the iceberg today, but mostly I just wanted to cover the ones that are for K through 12, because most people don't know that the National Library of Medicine has these resources. Most of the time people are familiar with the researcher side of the resources available, like PubMed and so on, but many aren't necessarily as familiar with, you know, like Harry Potter's World or Genetics Home Reference. So all of the different websites that I went through today are located on different web pages, but the MAR office, which is our which is one of the NNLM offices, created a nice resource guide that has the links to the resources categorized by subject. So the subjects you're seeing now here on the screen, I selected environmental health and chemistry, so you can see that they have those listed there. And the guide is updated as new resources are created and vetted by NLM. And then there's also the Specialized Information Services page, which is through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And on their homepage, you can see that they have these pages for the different subjects we touched on today. Specifically, they have a page for K through 12, as you can see on the bottom right-hand corner. And so if you go to that site and you click on that, K through 12 Science and Health Education, it'll lead you to links to many of the resources I covered today. So there's several ways to get to these different resources in one location. And of course, the handout that was linked to also has all of the links listed there of all the resources that we covered today, so you don't have to dig too far to get to those resources. And so this brings us to a close of K through 12 resources. Thank you for your time and attention. This was the 1-hour version of the online playground. Usually the idea is to do a much longer in-person session so we can really delve into the different resources and do a search. But as this is a webinar, I figured, you know, an hour is a good amount of time to tune in. And so we would enjoy your feedback if you're able to incorporate any of these resources into your curriculum or your programming. And as a reminder, the class presentation, the slides are available and the handouts available if you'd like to go through these resources at your own pace. And, you know, there were many of them, so I would encourage you to look through the resources on your own and see what you might discover. You might discover some interesting lesson plans or project ideas. And we'll go ahead and go to questions. I think I saw one. Yes, so thank you, Sarah. Sarah's provided the link to the Harry Potter page so that kids can explore. So again, I really like that one. That's a fun one since it's also popular with the K through 12 students that we're teaching. So please hang in there with us for the demographic poll. But first, at this time, I'm more than happy to respond to any other questions or comments. Yes. So that is one thing that's true. There's a lot of great resources for middle and high school students. For the kindergarten, it might be a little bit sparser. I would say Talks Mystery might be for that younger crowd. And I think the difficulty with that is, yeah, a lot of the resources are meant more for like activities and labs, and that generally starts in the middle school and high school parts of school. So, so hopefully we're able to get some more resources for the younger crowd. All right, I'll just give another minute for any other questions if anyone is typing in the chat box, and soon I will pass the ball back over to Sarah, or she will take the ball and she will start the poll, and I just ask you to please fill that out so that we can send that in. Thank you so much, Kathleen. And yes, you know, if you are a librarian working with teachers, or if you're an educator, again, a lot of these resources, you just kind of have to search through them, but a lot of them have lesson plans that are already made. It's just a matter of going through and picking out, you know, which ones work for your grade level and that sort of thing. And I'm really a proponent of collaboration. I'm actually collaborating with a science teacher and an English teacher for a STEM project that's coming up soon. And so, you know, there are ways that a librarian can work with different subject teachers and make a program together. And I just think that's a really cool thing to do, not just for professionally, but for the students as well, for them to see the interaction of the different subject matters and all of that and how it works together. All right, well, if there are no other questions, I will pass it on to Sarah. Thank you so much for your time today.